I'm chatting with Laura Van Wormer, Opera, Class of 74 podcast. Welcome, Laura.
Well, thank you, Terry. I'm laughing while you're talking about it. It's a mouthful. My name's impossible. What the podcast is impossible. So I think you're doing amazingly well, but thank you for having me.
So really quickly, before we kind of dive into it, let's do like a quick bio of you. How did you get from where you started to having a serialized soap opera podcast? And then we're going to actually dive into the podcast itself.
Great. Okay. I've been was a full-time novelist since 1988.
Okay.
My first novel, Riverside Drive, came out, and that, talk about beginner's luck, that was the month Danielle Steele was late handing in her book. So the Literary Guild of America took my book as the major selection. Now, how's that for?
I think that's fabulous. I want some of that luck. So if you know how to rub it off on me, let me know.
Well, at the time, Doubleday was a house that published 600 titles a year, and now it publishes maybe 50 as an imprint under Random House. So things have changed. Yes. But there are ways, Terry, and we will find them.
Yeah.
But I wrote 13 more books.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a full-time novelist, which meant that nobody saw me for a year. And then I came out, went on tour, and then came home. And one of my friends over the years was Betty White. You remember Betty from the Golden Girls?
Betty. I love her.
Betty and I had the same agent, wonderful person named Loretta Barrett. And Loretta got a glioblastoma tumor.
Yes.
And as a favor to Loretta and her agency, I was going to fly out to LA to see Betty to help her get started with her next book because she didn't have Retta. And on the way there, this SOB kid who's drunk, and he went through a tunnel on the Merritt Parkway the wrong way, and he hit me head on. So this is my ventilator voice. I was out for like a month, and I broke everything. And the thing is that, and Terry, as a writer, you'll know exactly how I felt. Forget all the damage to me physically. It was mentally, my head had gotten so banged up, I couldn't write fiction anymore. I was devastated. I mean, I tried, let me tell you. And, my old editor, she was so lovely, like, okay, well, let's try this. Let's try that. And the thing is that as a writer, and all of you writers who are listening, understand you have a mental musculature. You've developed a sense of being able to hold fiction in your head, a story. And you know how when you start a book, it's so nice to talk to another writer who understands what I'm talking about. When you begin a novel, you might just write for maybe an hour or two the first day. Mm-hmm. But as you go along, you spend longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, because you have more things that you recognize need to happen next, or this character has developed more. And right.
And you want to see what happens.
Yeah.
And so at the very end, you are working probably a 16-hour day because you're in that zone where you're sort of omniscient. You can look down and see the whole story.
Yeah.
And that's a fleeting window for everybody. Maybe your first book, you still could say, recite it by heart. I could recite mine by heart. But that window, being able to hold that, I couldn't hold a story in my head. And it showed because the way I wrote as a novelist, I was somebody who ran as fast as I could to keep up with myself. And then the art was in the revision.
Yes, so I'm 100% pantser, where I'm just writing and writing and writing, and I finally get the story out, and then that's the ugly version, and then I have to go back and say, okay, how are we going to fix this?
Yes.
Now that I have the story out of my head, now it needs a lot. So let's get this right. So that's the way I write as well.
Well, see, that's what I love. And I did listen or watch some of your podcasts, and it's great when you guys talk about revision, because a lot of writers, when you first start writing, you don't understand that that's where the writing's going on, is in the revision.
Right.
That all these movies about people who sort of, just take it down the dictation from the sky and you think it's perfect as it comes out.
And it's not.
No. Not even The Course in Miracles was perfect when it was channeled through that lady.
Absolutely.
And so I couldn't hold it. And novels are what I love. That was my thing. I mean, I'm a storyteller, and I've never been a literary writer. I've really been somebody who wants to take people with me away to get out of this world and come into mine, which means the reader has to suspend their belief and come with me. So for 10 years, Terry, I couldn't write.
Oh, that must have been miserable.
Oh, I thought about killing myself. Seriously. And my other half, I mean, I don't know how my family put up with me, but they did. And my best friends, because I really had retired from the world and not as a writer. So what happened was I went to my 50th high school reunion, Darien, Connecticut, which is a suburban town. And all our fathers commuted to New York and all our mothers stayed home and kept house. And everybody drove drunk.
Right.
There no such thing as a cell phone. There's no such thing as a Xerox machine yet. I mean, life was very different in those days in high school. And nobody kept track of us. I mean, we just ran wild. Anyway, in high school, Terry, I used to write stories. And I would stop like a keg party. I'd have a few beers and I'd say, okay, everybody stop. I want to read you a story I wrote. And everybody'd say, oh,
no, okay, Laura.
She does.
Yeah.
Right. It's just what we want to do in a party or a keg party outside, right? And I would read them a story. And when I was at the reunion, I just went to the dinner because I'm still sort of insecure about how I look post-accident. And my voice is different. And I was there and I just was thinking how much I loved all these kids, and because they'll always be kids to me. And I just wanted to get up and read them, stop everything. I want to read you a story. So when I went home that night, I was really sad. And my other half came in and said, Laura, why don't you write your class a story and tell it as a podcast? Then they can hear you because of the microphone.
Right.
And, I love podcasts and I love the intimacy. I feel like you develop a relationship. And I'm like, this is the best idea I ever heard of. And immediately I started writing fiction. And I was writing about the first day of school in 1971. And it just wrote itself. So what happened, Terry, is it got me writing fiction. And the longest episode is maybe 30 pages. And I can do that. And I read it, the story. And originally it was just going to be for my class. And they were all very good sports about listening. And, now they can be drinking while they're listening to Laura read them a story again.
Right.
And since high school, though, I've learned a lot about cliffhanger endings. I had done some work at one point for Dynasty, Dallas, and Knots Landing back in the day.
Oh, they were super at cliffhangers that made you wait from season to season to know if who shot JR, for goodness sakes, right?
Well, the creators of those shows they're all English majors.
Right.
And they loved Victorian literature. And that's where David Jacobs, he originally invented Knots Landing first. He sold that first, but Dallas is the one they produced first. But so he was just, like everybody else, loves a good cliffhanger.
Right.
In a book form. They just went to TV. And the Shapiros who did Dynasty were literary, they had master's degrees and stuff. And Esther had done in TV, she did a little miniseries called Roots. Perhaps you would remember that.
Just a little tiny one, right?
So her concept of TV was very different,
right,
from what everybody had been watching. And I know that that is something people can get very hooked into. And if you like somebody in a podcast, you bond with them.
Yeah.
And if you trust them, just like in book form, you'll stay with them.
Right.
Trusting they're going to take you somewhere that's worthwhile. That was what this experiment was. Could I do it in a different medium?
And I love that idea because for me, when I first started writing, I didn't know I was going to be an author. I was a virtual assistant. And I had one of the people that I was being a secretary for say to me, I love the way you write an email. Have you ever considered writing? And I said, well, I used to say I wanted to be an author as a kid.
Yes,
but right. And he said, well, could you help me write a book? I have this idea. And it was just like 10 things you can do to keep you from getting kidney stones. I mean, it wasn't a book. It was just you know what I mean? And so I said, sure, I'll help you. And then he passed my name on to some other people. And before long, that's what I was doing. I was doing some ghost writing kind of stuff for businesses and other people. And then finally, I got the guts to write something. I had been wanting to write, real fiction.
Forever.
And then all of a sudden I had the ability to do it, and I wrote it, and I didn't know that's where I was going. And then now I have a podcast because I got on a podcast as a guest. I didn't even know what podcasts were when I got on one. And
that's what my classmates.
Right. And so for me, I think like you is sometimes you are experimenting with things and something new comes open and you just say, ooh, that might fit. And off you go to try it. So I love that, the world kind of threw something really nasty at you.
Yes. Big time.
And then you were able to say, okay, that maybe I'm done doing that, but it doesn't mean I'm done.
Well, that was the thing. And the idea, it had to be suggested to me.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I think a lot of times that's what happens.
Well, everything that I'd ever done in my life made sense. Yeah. When I was in college, I wrote independent study. I wrote a murder mystery for radio, right? I thought and I wrote an episode of Policewoman or something, and I wanted to work for 8 is enough. Anyway, I ended up going into book publishing instead. And then I left book publishing and was doing some work in TV. And then I got to publish my first novel. All of these things, Terry, I'm just like, things happen. And then I think, yeah, I really like that idea. Right. Let's give it a go. And listening to that inner voice, so many writers, would have authors when I was an editor at Doubleday, and they would talk about the book that they want to write. And I would just think, why? What about you? What about what makes your heart sing?
Right.
Right. What do you want?
Right. Well, and that's one of the things that I do is people often will say to me, like, I've written 3 historical fiction. And so people say, oh, so you're a historical fiction author. And it's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, right. Because they bought into the genre.
Right. Because my 4th novel that's coming out is a contemporary women's fiction humor. Cool. with a little slash of romance. It's not really a romance. It won't fit the romance genre. It doesn't meet all their criteria, but it's got, a little love story on the side.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny. And it's first person, present tense, contemporary, completely different than anything I've ever done before. And
because it's you. It's your voice.
Right. And I've written a memoir, and I've written a children's book, and why? Because that's what's on my mind.
Well,
and I don't like someone saying to me, this is what you have to write. It's like, oh, see, I don't.
Well, that's the beauty of podcasting, is that you're able to explore the world through the microphone, and you see the channels to reach audiences for certain books. But there are other people who'll just fall in love with you and just buy whatever you write.
Right.
And it excites me that you are writing fiction because given your life and your experiences, you have so much to draw on. And except you can make your characters' dreams come true in every book.
Yes.
I found out that was the way to have a bestseller. Have everybody identify with the hero or heroine, what they want.
Absolutely.
And then find a way for them to have it, at least some form of it. And people really like that.
Absolutely. So your podcast is called Class of 74.
Yeah.
And my first question was, are these real stories or fictionalized? But you kind of answered that. They're fictionalized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But everything, it was like my books, everything that's right with people, I copy.
Right.
Because that's the rare thing. What works in this world? What's genuinely lovable? What's charming? What's helpful and inspiring in people? That is great. What's wrong with people? All you have to do is look out the window.
Yeah, that's easy to find, right?
Right. The people who say, all fiction must be categorized in a neat package for marketing. That's the enemy. That stuff. I don't need to copy anybody in real life.
Right.
But I must say, we did, in my classmates and hearing back from them, a lot of them had the same bullies.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've been working on bullies.
Okay.
They come and go, and man, are they going to get it? Because this is fiction.
Right. And you're allowed to let them get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also some people, there's a scene of this one kid who's sort of a dork,
Yeah.
But he gets discovered, his voice. Everybody thinks he sounds like a foghorn, right? But the coach of the theater club hears him and says, I want you in our theater group. And this is like so fantastic. And it's a very upbeat storyline, right?
Right.
So then I hear from somebody who wrote me about her memories of being in high school and not being able to go to the drama club, that the drama teacher didn't like her and wouldn't tell her when the sessions were. So she couldn't come. And the people in the class, that's the kind of thing. Everybody has a painful memory.
Yes.
And that was hers, was the drama club.
Right.
But she didn't mind the storyline because it wasn't about people, what's wrong with people. It was like celebrating this wonderful thing that happened. And those universal experiences are going to resonate with everybody. Rejection. Oh my God. How awful, and being self-conscious. And that's why I'm so glad I get to be 15 when the story starts, because it's a great age. You're an adult sometimes and you're a kid at the other, right?
Right.
But all the interesting stuff is happening around you. People are starting, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's all starting to unfold. And the characters are really likable and they're fun. And that's what this podcast is about. I've been depressed for 10 years. I'm not staying there.
I agree. I think that's awesome. It sounds to me like when you're writing these episodes, in a lot of ways, it's almost short story.
Well, they're chapters. I realize now, because they are cliffhanger endings.
Okay.
Maybe, what was that book? Was it Andersonville? Where all the stories were connected.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is cliffhanger. This is, what happens next? Come back next week.
Right.
And see what happens, right?
Okay.
And so it's an ongoing serial. And people have, now I hear from publishers all the time, is this going to be a novel? Everybody wants to know. And I'm like, well, maybe not.
Maybe not. We shall see.
But the pages pile up, Terry.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I see this wealth of information, that all that I've written, but it's the method that's so different to me. And I've always written as if I was trying to read it to somebody. So I made sure it sounded good and it sounded interesting, right? And I think a lot of authors should try it. Not, that like your next novel. Maybe it is a 10-week serial,
So I was going to talk to you about that. Like,
right.
Whether or not this is something that you think that would people do this and publish their book, have it
if
both
they want.
ways?
Well, the thing is that
could this be instead of an audiobook? Could this be like, where do you see this kind of serialized podcasting kind of thing going?
I see
for authors.
For authors, it's a practice to do a story you haven't done. That it would be good if you slowed down and you got feedback while you were writing it.
That's, in a way, it's kind of like a public way of what I do. I go to a group where they usually get a chapter and then everybody talks about it. And this would be a more public version of that.
Absolutely.
Right? Where you put it out there and then you get some feedback and you find out, does anyone care? Do they like this character?
And why are they liking this person, right?
Right.
Everybody wants to know about the bad girl. Of course they do.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, and this is all new, right? When I started, I had no idea what I was doing. And as it is solidified, I see that it is a new invention. It is a new literary form. It is a cross between old time radio and an audio novel and doing a reading live in a bookstore where you can see people's attentions lagging.
Right. When you can know that this isn't going over well.
Right. And with all the editing I have to do, because sometimes I'll go off my script and, oh boy, I'm off in fairyland. And what I have to do is see how the material comes out and how it hangs together as a manuscript. But are you kidding me? Do you think I'd like to be known as the mother of the new Victorian novel that will go back to what Anthony Trollope did, which was he'd publish 3 chapters and sell it and then get the money and go purchase, well, he was serialized in the Cornhill magazine. But what they did then was they would publish it in installments in the magazine. And then when it was done after 2 years, they published this huge novel. Right. And that's how, they made money. And Twain, of course, did that to get started, but his was really financing the next episode.
The next 3 chapters. Right.
Right. Until he got famous.
Right.
And he didn't have to worry. Well, wonder if, let's see, now we're hatching a new podcast, my dear, and you're going to be the general publisher. Because it's got to be a serial. It's got to be something. So then you do that. You have your book, you have your material. Then you'd re-edit it as a novel.
Right.
And then you could publish it.
I think it's a very...
And then the audiobook.
Right. I think it's a very interesting concept. I mean, I think it's really a cool idea. Part of me worries a little because I'm like, well, then will anyone buy the book? And then the answer is, well, of course they would, because people read the book and then watch the movie. And then I know people who buy the book and the audiobook, like they get both. Right. And so the answer is, well, of course they would. Yeah. I don't know. I think
the sense of discovery. And I think that our group, I don't want to call myself a baby boomer because we're not. This particular group that there's a channel of 5 years where we really are the liberation generation because the women's movement was starting.
Right.
The Black Power movement was in full swing.
Right.
Segregation was getting, torn down. And I always love to tell people, Nixon created the Environmental Protection Agency because Republicans were against pollution by industry. What a concept, right? So a lot was going on.
Right.
But as a young woman, my cousin who was older than I wasn't like this. My parents said, Laura, you can be whatever you want when you grow up.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, my first job out of college was as a secretary.
Right, right. Because despite the fact your parents were saying that, the world still said you can be a teacher, a secretary, or a nurse.
You got it. And I don't know about if your mother made sure you knew how to type or not, but mine did.
Oh, yes. I had to take typing in school. And I'm actually so thankful for it because now as an author, I can just I can keep up with my mind. You know?
But that's it. And so when I'm saying I just had my 70th birthday, oh my God. And, and I let 10 years go by. 10 years.
Well, you're not going to do that anymore, Laura. We're not.
No, I'm not. But I think that my age group, they just do something new at 70.
Yeah.
They are retiring from something, but they're going on to something different.
Right. Right. And retirement doesn't look like sitting on the front porch knitting anymore.
Right. And I think that the new technology is really wonderful for us too.
Yeah.
In exploring and doing different things. And that's why, I get so excited. And now I have this Patreon group, and it's fascinating. Now, again, you're going to love this because these people pay $5 a month, right, to join. Mm-hmm. And once a week, I'm having a Zoom meeting with them. And in the beginning, we were talking about the episode that had just aired. But then everybody who was joining was in different parts of the story.
Right, right.
So everybody now, they just talk about their high school days, and I write everything down.
because it's giving you more ideas for more episodes, right?
Yes, absolutely. And they know it, and they really enjoy it. And so they come in and...
How long have you been doing this now? When did the first one come out? About
the end of last April.
End of
less than a year.
Okay. And I'm sure that between the first one that you put out and now, that you've learned some things that give us some of the roadblocks you hit and some things that you quickly figured out a way around. Like, is there anything that you said, oh my gosh, I'll never do it that way again?
Right. My voice. I have to pay attention because, I had a great voice, Terry. I could, and now I can't. So things like coffee, you just have to watch out for certain things and and my mental fatigue, because I do get tired. And of course, anybody who writes fiction gets tired, emotionally tired.
Yes.
You spend all your time running away from the phone because you don't want to give away your emotional energy.
Right.
You need it to write with. But in terms of the podcast itself, for anybody who's thinking about this now, being overly ambitious, the episodes were getting to be almost an hour. And it was just too much, number one, because I had to learn that people, my books that I wrote were things that people took to bed for the weekend kind of thing.
Right.
Right. And I thought people are going to want to go, they're going to be depressed because if something's going on, they'll put on their earbuds and they can escape. But then I found out that the real audience, they're all still working. And guess what? Well, they're driving to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their average time is between 20 minutes and a half hour or so.
So an hour long is too long.
Yeah.
They have to stop in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, logic would tell you, okay, Laura, then divide these in half, what you're writing. But I'm a novelist. I can't, because these are like little mini novels that I've got the momentum going and I want to see what's going on and what happens next.
Right.
And anyway, it's all ridiculous. But so I would say limit yourself to a half hour, which is about 20 pages read. And then you can deliver your episodes at the same time every week.
Okay.
Because that's what happened to me in the first season, is that suddenly everybody was waiting for me on Fridays, and I'm away somewhere. And I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. Right. And I get home, and on Facebook, everybody's like, where the hell is everybody? Why? Where was the podcast? It wasn't there. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh, no. Right.
And now, Terry, some of these people, I don't know them.
Right. No, that's the way it becomes. This
person is in England, and this person's in Australia, and that one's in Hawaii. And, so you're developing an audience, and here I am antagonizing them already.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have an idea about how many episodes you plan to do, or is this going to be an ongoing project?
It's an ongoing. I'm going to have to take a break, basically to catch up with the paperwork more than anything else.
Yeah.
And also to examine this issue of the manuscript that's piling up.
Right.
I did 25 episodes last year. And this year, I think a season at 30 episodes is probably good.
Yeah.
And maybe 1.5 seasons a year. I mean,
yeah, I think that's great. Do you have any ideas for other storylines?
Oh my God, yes. But right now I'm exhausted. So
right. You can only do right. Well, and that's the way I feel. I've got all these other books in my mind, but I kind of have to put them on hold. It's like I can only do so much at a time. So.
Right. And also you have to get your life reorganized to accommodate new ideas,
Right. Absolutely.
And how would that work? And that's where things like AI fascinate me, because, Terry, your listeners don't know this, but in a podcast, you get a transcript that has time cues on it.
Right.
It's I have what I wrote over here, and then I have what I actually taped. And then there are these time cues, and then taking AI and asking AI to take out the time cues, please, for me.
Right.
It sounds easy, but you know what? It's time consuming. If I do it, let them do it.
Yes.
And then
yes.
I need to compile a story Bible, because I don't know where this is going. And if I learned anything working with the creators of Dallas, Knots Landing, and Dynasty, is you got to leave a story Bible with your characters. If you value them and the show goes in a direction and there's going to be new writers on it.
Yes.
They have to know.
They have to know that there's certain things that otherwise the continuity gets all screwed up.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's called a story Bible. So every episode I've been training my stupid AI, I call it, because some of the stuff that was coming out, and I'm like, I paid for this. They help me. They'll encapsulate the episode, plot wise. And it still stinks on, it doesn't understand emotion, so it's hard.
Right.
It hears the emotional voice and it's on a transcript, but AI can't understand it.
Right. Which is why AI isn't going to take over anytime soon.
Exactly.
A lot of people are worried that AI will ruin writers. And I don't think so. I think that we're always going to, I think that we offer something that AI can't.
Oh, well, you have to remember there was a time outside of England, nobody had culture. There was no such thing as American culture.
Right.
And then there was something called the blues that came out of America, and nobody could get enough of it, and then gradually over the years, because we're such a young country, we've been developing our culture. And what's happened is that the foreigners, listen to me, foreigners have bought all of our publishing houses.
Right.
Because they're buying brands of toothpaste. This is, okay, I want Stuart Woods, but I don't want to have to deal with him. I just want his backlist.
Right.
I would just want the stories, and I want the dramatic rights, well, it's not going to last forever, guys. And the publishers have found out that self-publishing is a very effective way to get your work out there. And if you're any good, it'll work.
Yeah.
And Simon & Schuster just launched a whole
I saw that
vision.
Yeah. I saw that. I found
because
it very
they know
interesting.
they're losing people.
Absolutely.
And just so that your listeners understand that in the old days, in the old school, when I was at Doubleday, we had a slush pile. We discovered authors in it. Yeah. There was a guy named Stephen King who wrote a story about a girl who went to her prom and they dropped pig's blood on her. And they loaned him the bus fare to come to New York to talk about a contract. How would they have discovered him today?
Yeah.
Self-publishing. It's the only way.
Yeah.
So they're out there. And there are some brilliant publishers and editors, but they have been sealed up in an ivory tower that's beyond belief. So when you are self-publishing, don't be ashamed of it. Make money at it until you get discovered and somebody wants to buy your backlist.
Right.
Then you're a happy camper, right?
Well, that's what I'm waiting on.
There you go. There you go. And there are many different routes to the end, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
what makes me so happy is just to watch all these people writing it, doing the work, learning how to write and revise and edit,
right,
and to help each other and to compare notes. And that's got to be the most wonderful. I mean, my last novels were published by a hardcover line of Harlequin called Mira Books.
Okay.
And I would go to like the BEA, the Book Expo America, which doesn't even exist anymore. And so I would look at the best-selling authors and I would look at the present Harlequin writers. Okay. So I'm looking at Nora Roberts. Where'd she start? Right. Sandra Brown. All these people had the same editor I do. And I'm like, what? And Heather Graham and Debbie May Comer. The group, they all learned to write sort of in the Harlequin camp where they all exchanged notes.
Right.
There was a very big community feeling there. And that's how I feel about like your podcast.
Yeah.
That's it. Here we are at BEA whispering.
Yeah, telling each other things so that we can get better.
What was your royalty rate?
Right. Well, speaking of that, Laura, if someone wanted to whisper at you and get some more information and find out a little bit more about like creating a podcast or learning a little bit more about just publishing, how it used to be, how you think it's going to be, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Oh, gosh. Well, of course, my temptation is a join Patreon club.
Yeah, well, of course. So you could do that.
Then you get to talk to me every week.
Every week, right.
No, there are two websites. One is lauravanwarmer.net. Okay. That's my writer's website.
Right.
Okay. And then there is a website, class of 74 podcast.com.
Okay.
But the best way is on Facebook. And I'm good about answering things.
Super.
But I am big on the community thing and
Absolutely.
what you're doing. And I see how you've organized it. It's just fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So guys, I'm going to have everything in the show notes. You'll be able to find Laura's, her writing. We'll be able to find her Class of 74 podcast. I highly recommend that you run out and take a listen. I've only listened to the first couple of episodes, but I'm enjoying it. It's going to be something I think I start listening to while I'm in my car until I catch up. I have enjoyed getting to know you today. And I want to thank you so much for being on my show.
It was absolute pleasure, complete pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.